if you had 10 minutes to share your wisdom with the world, what would you say? Is quite a unique question to be asked. And I'm someone who asks it to other people all the time. And I think about what my 10 minutes would be, and I think that that's something that is really always evolving. My life's been quite interesting in the sense that when I was little, I wanted to be a barrister. And it's a very unusual career choice for a 5-year-old to want to do. And the reason that that came is because I got teased in the playground a lot. And I thought, I want to be the woman who knows how to answer back, who has those really quick answers to people. And I want to be the woman who also knows how to defend other people who feel really vulnerable, as I felt back then. Nobody, when I was young, would have ever imagined that I would do this particular career because I was also very shy. So they would think, how the hell would you have the confidence to do that? But my mind got very good at deleting things that didn't go with the goal. So an example of that is when I was at university, there was a lecturer that apparently always used to tell us that the very tiny percentage of people make it in this career. And it just so happened that my friends would tell me about it, and I was like, oh, I missed that bit of the lecture. I just wasn't listening. So I think one of the lessons that you can take from that straight away is if you have a vision of what you want for your life, life has a funny way of working out so that all those pieces can fall into place for you. And that was my vision, that I would be that woman that would be able to defend the needy and those that couldn't speak for themselves. And that's how it worked. And somehow, in my mid-teens, I found some confidence. By way of Tony Robbins, actually. That's another story. My dad had all the tapes, and I listened to them as a 15-year-old. So I think that was a large part of that journey. And then when I was about 18, I went for a work experience placement. And the people there were very nice to me, and I thought, oh, I'd really like to work here. But not from the place of need or attachment or anything like that. It was literally just, that would be nice. And I know that sometimes our goals maybe have to be more driven than that, but that was literally all there was. And then I didn't know anything about the law of attraction in those days, but I'd sit there and just daydream about, I'm going to take the train to Farringdon, and, what if this particular place was in the Temple. So if you've been in the Temple, it's very old-fashioned buildings, and there was a lovely lamppost near this particular chambers, and I imagined the love of my life is going to be there waiting for me every night after I finish work. And, we'll walk along the river together and go home. So that was what I visualized. And that is exactly what I got. And I can't explain how. There were 200 people for 2 places at that particular firm. And I got it because somebody said to me, the guy that you worked with all those years ago remembers you and feels that you'd be a fit for this firm. So come, work for us. And that firm, to this day, are the #1 place in this country where you can practice employment law. So although I didn't stay there, it was one of those things that is always going to look valuable on my CV. And it's still my main specialism today. The other lesson that I learned from that, when you're doing that visualization work, is remember to be specific, and also remember to be open for what God wants to give you. Now, I use the word God because that resonates for me, but you use whatever you like, universe or many manifestations of the power above that be. So what I forgot to ask for in that particular vision was that. I was very young at the time, so I put that experience to that. But I forgot to ask to be happy in that vision. And I had the love of my life meeting me at the lamppost every night. I had that job of my dreams. I did commute into Farringdon and walk up every day. And it was one of the most miserable years of my life. So be careful what you wish for. However, it served me very well. So that's a few minutes of wisdom. The other part of the wisdom that I'm often asked to share is after that journey, I had a big soul search into what am I actually supposed to be doing with my life. So yes, I dreamed of being a barrister since I was a little girl. Now that I was here, it wasn't necessarily making me happy. So I found the world of coaching. So in around 2005, 3 years after I'd qualified as a barrister, I decided to qualify as a coach. I pursued that for a little while, alongside the legal career, because, hey, it still pays the bills, you know. And, you know, that wasn't really working out either. So the other thing to take from that is sometimes, you know, things aren't meant to be in that way. And I don't think I'm necessarily meant to be a one-on-one coach. But all these experiences start to make sense later. They might not make sense at the time, but I think many years later, when you start putting them all together, they seem to make perfect sense as to what and why you were drawn in that direction. So for me, I've had a lot of training in that sort of thing, and it's enabled me to run something like this, because personal development is something I am very passionate about. But not only that, but it's helped in the legal career, because instead of just being your stereotype that's going to be very scary in the courtroom, I know how to connect with people. I know how to build that rapport. And, you know, that wouldn't have happened without that other piece of my transformational journey, which happened because I was dissatisfied in the path that I had initially chosen. So as a culmination of all of that, I wrote a couple of books, the second one of which I think was more me. The first one was about how to find the perfect relationship. So I'm actually good at helping other people with that, although I haven't mastered that myself. But the second book I wrote is called How to Be Captivating. And it's probably still the question that I get asked the most is, how do you take the stage and be confident with that? Or how do you do a closing speech and not have notes in front of you and still manage to engage some mean-looking judge? And I think the biggest tip I can give you around this, and what I'll say to close, is it's really an engagement in, initially, a strategy that I call the actor strategy. And to develop that is to engage with your own higher self. Now, the way that you do that is a nice example of the actor strategy, and I still use it sometimes. It was a few weeks ago, Aretha Franklin had just died, and I was going to sing a tribute to her at a French jazz camp that I was at. I was feeling very nervous. I would never usually tackle Aretha's songs. They're very big songs, and she is just such a legend to me that I wouldn't necessarily do that. So the moment that I was about to get up and sing, I actually just kind of looked up to heaven and thought, Aretha, can I please borrow your confidence right now so that you can help me? And I imagined how she would tackle the song and just portrayed that in the performance. So that's what happened there, and I was able to carry it off. And maybe it wasn't perfect, but that was the thing that helped me in that moment. And I talked about the more advanced version of that strategy is where you connect to your higher power and your higher self. And the way I like to do this is think about what is the highest and best version of you. Because there was a version of you that was meant to be on this planet, that was meant to be the best self. And how often are we living that? And maybe for some of us all the time, and maybe for some of us not too often. But whatever that answer is for you, you know what that vision is if you really go in and look for it. And I like to give it a name as well. So for some random reason, mine is called Ronnie. But whatever that name is for you is cool. The first time I went and connect to it, to her, I said, well, what are you called? And that's the name she gave me. So I didn't question it. I didn't delete it. And I thought, okay, fine. So when I go on stage or do something that makes me nervous, I think, okay, well, how would Ronnie tackle this? Because she's really fearless and confident and can really deliver in that sense. So I can come on stage as my higher self and use that actor strategy in that way. So my invitation for you tonight really is to find who is your higher self And how can you use him or her to do that thing that you're most scared of? How can you use him and her to really connect to the vision that you want so that it gets delivered to you in the highest and best and happiest way possible? My wish for all of you is that you're able to do that and carry that through your lives. Thank you.